Charleston was not born of chance, but of geography. A strategic wedge of land carved between two rivers, a gateway waiting to be opened.
Its face was turned not inland, but to the sea, a lifeline of trade, people, and power stretching across the ocean. Every arrival brought something new: goods, ideas, and people from distant shores, stepping onto these docks with hope or burden. From the water, the city revealed itself not as a distant capital, but as an engine of commerce, brick, timber, and relentless motion. The wealth that flowed from these ships was built on a foundation of forced labor, ceaseless, vital, and uncompensated. Leaving the harbor's din, the city opened up, a planned grid of ambition, where every street led to opportunity or authority. The city learned to breathe. Its architecture was a negotiation with sun and storm, creating beauty from necessity. Broad Street was Charleston's spine of power, where influence was worn visibly, and society arranged itself in careful ranks.
Here, the city's order was performed daily, a visible ballet of privilege, duty, and subjugation moving along the same path.
Commerce and governance met under these arches. The exchange was where deals shaped the colony's future, and authority kept its accounts.
Beneath this roof, whispers carried the weight of fortunes. Paper and promise built an empire of trade.
From above, the harbor was a ledger. Every ship an entry, every cargo a column in the ledger of imperial wealth. Here, the colony's abundance was on display, a symphony of scents, colors, and tongues, where the necessities of life changed hands. The market was a crossroads of the Atlantic world. Here, the accents of 3 continents mixed in the air above the baskets and scales.
This abundance was carried on their shoulders. Their labor was the invisible current that made the market flow.
Behind the graceful facades lay the city's muscle, the forges, kitchens, and workshops, where its true strength was forged.
Beauty and burden stood side by side. The city's grace was built upon a foundation of hidden toil.
The gaze rose naturally, from the busy street to the spires above, where the city's spiritual and temporal authority met the sky. St. Michael's steeple was more than a landmark. It was the city's compass, a fixed point in a changing world, visible to every ship and soul.
It anchored the skyline, ordered the hours, and called the community, a steady heartbeat for a growing city.
Week after week, they gathered, not just in faith, but in reaffirmation of the social order that held their world together. Day after day, the shadows turned. The city's rhythm was set by the sun and the tide, an unbroken cycle of labor and rest.
The city grew, reaching toward its natural limits. Each new building was a bet on a future of continued prosperity.
Behind closed doors, Charleston's elite recreated a world an ocean away. Their finery was a declaration of belonging to a distant crown.
At its height, Charleston was a perfect instrument of empire, orderly, prosperous.
As daylight faded, the city's character changed. The noise of commerce gave way to the murmur of conversation in the gathering dark.
The harbor never truly slept. Even in darkness, it whispered of journeys taken and those yet to come.
Taverns were the city's second hearth. Here, away from official eyes, the real talk began.
In the flickering light, plans were made, grievances shared, and loyalties tested over ale and whispered news. Coffee houses were the engines of ideas. Here, the news from Boston or London was dissected, and the future was debated in sober tones. A single pamphlet could change everything. Words from afar landed here with the force of a cannon shot, rearranging loyalties in an instant.
The debate spilled into the streets. What was whispered indoors now echoed under the lanterns, dividing neighbor from neighbor.
The spaces made for celebration now held meetings of protest. The city's stage was being rewritten.
Sometimes the strongest protest was an empty stall, a silent, collective no to laws made across the sea. In shadowed rooms, the unthinkable was discussed. The bonds of empire were weighed against the desire for self-rule.
A tension settled over the city, as palpable as the evening fog. The old rhythms were breaking. The tools of trade were joined by the tools of war. The city began to arm itself against its former protectors.
Merchants and planters now drilled as soldiers. Their uniforms were homespun, their resolve tested with every command.
This was not a professional army, but a community arming itself, step by deliberate step.
On the horizon, the answer to their defiance appeared. The might of empire sailing into view.
The Royal Navy arrived not as protectors, but as enforcers. The sea that brought them wealth now brought their reckoning.
Redcoats now walked the streets they once protected. The sound was no longer commerce, but the steady tramp of occupation.
The Union Jack flew where local banners once hung. The symbols of authority had changed overnight.
Life continued, but in a lower key. Every glance, every transaction now carried a weight of caution. The harbor was no longer a gateway, but a cage. British guns now controlled the city's lifeline.
The siege was a slow, grinding pressure. Smoke on the horizon marked the cost of defiance.
When the smoke cleared, the city remained, but it was a changed place, scarred, exhausted, and facing an uncertain future.
The work of rebuilding began not with celebration, but with simple determination. The city would endure.
From above, its bones were unbroken. The plan, the streets, the spirit, they had survived the fire. The war was over, but the city's story was not. It stood at a threshold, its past etched in brick, its future unwritten.
In the peace that followed, Charleston took stock. The scars of war were now part of its texture, a city tempered by conflict.
Slowly, trade returned. The ships were fewer, the fortunes smaller, but the harbor's rhythm began again. Stone by stone, the city was remade. The work was slow, a testament not to grandeur, but to sheer persistence. The familiar sounds of daily life returned. A cart's rumble, a neighbor's greeting, the steady pulse of a community rebuilding. Through war and peace, the skyline held. These steeples and roofs were the constant in Charleston's changing story.
The market filled again, its stalls a promise that life, in all its messy, bartering glory, would go on.
The old contradictions remained, woven into the fabric of the new city. Freedom for some still rested on the bondage of others.
The craftsmanship of an earlier age endured. In iron and brick, the city's 18th century soul was permanently inscribed. The harbor was peaceful once more, its surface hiding the turmoil of the years beneath a placid sheen.
This street existed then as it does now. The past is not a foreign country here. It is the very ground we walk upon.
These are the same paths, worn by generations of feet. To walk here is to tread.
History lived in the quiet corners too. In the shade of these alleys, countless untold stories unfolded. Even in its heart, the city made room for green. These hidden gardens were an oasis, shaped by the same climate that shaped its destiny.
At midday, the city seemed at peace with its own history, the sun illuminating its layers without judgment.
Look closely, and the past speaks. In the worn stone, the smoothed wood, the touch of generations long gone.
From this height, the story becomes clear. A city shaped by water, tested by war, and defined by its endurance.
It always came back to the water. The rivers gave it life, purpose, and its unique place in the story of America.
Evening fell as it always had, the lanterns lighting a city that had witnessed the end of one world and the difficult birth of another.
And through it all, St. Michael's watched. Its bells marked time not in years, but in epochs. In its shadow, history accumulated layer upon layer. Faith, power, conflict, and memory.
Charleston did not just remember its past, it preserved it in brick and mortar. Here, the 18th century never fully ended.
The waterfront, where it all began. Still here, still pulsing with the memory of ships, sails.
As we pull away, the city becomes a map of itself, a testament to the idea that places hold memory long after the people are gone.
Here, at the meeting of the rivers, geography made its original promise.
It fades from view, but not from memory. For history is not just what we read, But what these